The next Google question was, are pets allowed in stores? This one was actually kind of interesting. There were several things that were Googled. Are pets allowed in Home Depot? Are pets allowed in Lowe's? Are pets allowed in different stores? And here in Belgium, pets are allowed, I mean, almost anywhere. You can go to a lot of stores. I would say a lot of restaurants, pets aren't allowed. But a lot of stores they are. But then again, if you go to a restaurant and you have a dog, there's always a patio. It's springtime right now, and it's awfully comfortable to take your dog out in the patio, and we see a lot of that. But what's it like in LA? And do you know, is it different state to state?
I'm 100% sure it is different state to state. In
Hmm.
California, it's kind of, but the rule I would say is that you are allowed to take your pet into almost every store or restaurant, especially if you have a specialized license for your pet. Say it's an emotional support animal or a like a disability animal that helps with a disability, seeing eye dogs or things like that, not just for emotional support, not just dogs for social anxiety and things like that. So there are all different types of licenses that you can bring your pet with you everywhere you go.
Hmm.
The stores and restaurants or public places, they have different rules for what they'll allow and not allow. But in general, you should be able to bring your animal anywhere if you have one of these specialized licenses, and the stores shouldn't ask you about it unless
Yeah.
your pet is causing a problem.
Hmm.
So that's the gray area.
Hmm.
If your pet is not causing a problem and you take it in somewhere with you, they're probably not going to ask you any questions because they could get in a lot of trouble if you do have a particular license, because it's against the law or it's probably against the law and against like privacy acts to ask somebody
Right.
what's wrong with them medically. They don't have to answer those questions, so they can see it as harassment or bias or
Hmm.
anything like that. So they should never ask you unless your pet is causing a problem. And if you are getting the proper licenses for your pet, they ask certain questions. Can your pet sit, come, stay? Do they have those kinds of basic training? And if you say yes, but you're lying, that's on you. I think it's really hard to control those types of licenses. So people shouldn't take advantage of it. That's the advice that I give. Don't take advantage of those types of licenses. If you have a pet license, you could take your pet anywhere. It is for certain people, but can you
Yeah.
take your pet anywhere? Yes, you could take your pet anywhere if it has the proper license. But are they going to ask you about it if you don't have a license? They're not going to ask you unless your pet is causing problems.
Hmm.
So there's the gray area.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that, the licensing is kind of interesting because I haven't seen that as required in Belgium. It seems to be pretty loose regarding that. They're pretty loose here regarding a lot of things, though. For example, being off leash is something here that's I hate to be the Yankee migrant over here being picky about laws, but I almost think that the off leash laws are too lenient. And I'm not saying that because of people who do the right thing and pay attention to the dog and get their dog proper training, but I'm talking about those people, the idiots I'm talking about. They're on their cell phone at the park. They let their dog go. We took our cat to the emergency vet clinic on a weekend, right? And there was another guy there with his dog, and his dog was just attacked by another dog, and the other dog's owner was just on his cell phone the whole time. So, I think it's unfortunate that, it might be a little extra from my vantage point that you require a license like this, but it does create a system of accountability, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think here in Belgium, there's almost not enough licensing. There's not enough rules, and you get some of these
Yeah.
instances. So,
Yeah, it's hard to judge because what I think happens is people have a pet, a dog or cat or whatever, and they have had really good experiences off leash where nothing went wrong.
hmm.
So they get overconfident. They
Hmm.
pay less attention, they let their guard down, and then something happens. And you can't blame dogs for being dogs or cats for being cats. They're
Hmm.
just going to do what they're, naturally imposed to do.
Right.
And I never feel safe. I took my dog out for a walk this morning and I took her to the park across the street and there's no fencing. And I let her off leash and my head is on a swivel. I'm making sure there's no dogs coming. I'm making sure there's no other people. I'm making sure she doesn't leave the park or go out of the street. But could she dart out on me and make it to the street and something happen? Or could another dog that's also off leash, who has an owner doing the similar thing that I'm doing, run across each other and bad things happen? Absolutely. Absolutely. So is it a bad idea? It's definitely not a good idea to keep your pets off leash. But there's hardly an opportunity to do it safely.
Yeah.
Even if you're at a gated in dog park, you have to
Yeah.
worry about other dogs
Yeah.
and how they're going to react and stuff like that. So it's really, really hard. I think unless you have your own gated backyard or you have
Hmm.
the access to a private beach or something like that, you're kind of having to trust the people around you. And like you said, hope that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And that the hope that the person that knows they have a potentially aggressive pet or somebody that knows their dog wants to chase squirrels and run across the street, that you're not letting them off leash.
Yeah.
My dog is pretty well trained. My dog and I have a lot of experience together. And I know I'm sounding like a hypocrite because that's what I'm saying other people do. They get overconfident, but that's when bad things happen. And if it
Yeah.
happens to me, I warned myself. I knew the risks. I knew what I was doing. And hopefully we just minimize those risks by really not looking at your phone and not getting lost and staring at the clouds or whatever happens when
Yeah.
you're outside and it's beautiful and things are distracting. You have to pay attention to your dog like you're paying attention to your child, I guess.
One of the themes of doing this show the last 6 years that's come up a lot is the idea of like, if you raise your awareness as a pet owner, you can prepare yourself for all the risks. And I like that that's something you said. It's you have to know the risks and you have to, accept responsibility no matter what happens. But if you are vigilant, if your head is on a swivel, there's certain liberties you can take. But it's all dependent upon risk level. Am I getting that right? Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. I also go to take my dog when it's really early and there's not a lot of people out and there's not a lot of cars out. There are ways to minimize risk.
I think when it comes to taking pets to stores, though, so I'm a cat owner currently, but I had a dog
Mm.
growing up, and I think this is probably more of a dog thing. Would you agree? Taking an animal
Yeah.
to a store, typically.
Yeah. The question that people are asking, can you take your pets to a store? I think it is probably mostly talking about dogs. There are people who I've seen what I saw in the news, somebody was trying to bring a pony, an emotional support pony into a store, and people bringing their emotional support parrot to the store and emotional support iguana to the store.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's fine. Me as an animal lover and animal advocate, I think if you really have that issue
Hmm.
and that is your emotional support animal, then, more power to you.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because something that I heard recently that when I leave my pet, somebody was telling me that when they leave their pet home alone, that they feel anxiety, that leaving
Interesting.
alone in the cage or leaving it alone in the apartment, that they don't know what's happening and they're worried that something's going to happen to their pet. So it's for their own anxiety, they bring the pet along, maybe not the pet's anxiety. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting point. That makes sense. You can't have fun. You can't relax because it's like leaving a baby alone. You don't know what's going to happen. So
Yeah.
I kind of understand that. So I think pets should be allowed in stores as long as the pet is well behaved and well trained and that person accepts responsibility. And whether they're in Home Depot or McDonald's, as long as the pet isn't causing trouble, I don't know, there's got to be a line drawn. I don't want to see people's emotional
Right.
support goat at
Well, and you probably
Arby's.
want to support business owners as well. And if they say no
Yeah.
pets, they say no pets.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose business that way, but if that's your rule, no pets over 40 pounds or something, that maybe would make sense.
Although my friends have a greyhound
Nothing
and their
that doesn't
greyhound's
know how to
pretty
sit,
well
come or stay.
behaved. I mean, greyhounds are pretty chill. They just need like a bed.
Yeah,
You
see,
know.
I don't know what it is. There's got to be like you get a bouncer at the club and they're checking IDs. There's got to be somebody at every store checking like breeds and species. Like you have
Yeah,
to be on a list.
I think I remember seeing an episode of Gordon Ramsay when it's I think it was Hell's Kitchen. Anyway, no, it wasn't that. It was when he goes in for 24 hours and or 48 hours or something, and he makes
Kitchen
he,
Nightmares or something.
yeah, that one, yeah. And there was one where it was the idea was they have a menu for dogs and they have a menu for humans, and so it's
There we
like you
go.
you take your dog to the restaurant, but they had no rules. And for example, one of the rules that they needed to implement was no dogs on the table because it was
Oh,
kind
I
of,
was gonna say that.
yeah, yeah, like grossing out people who went to the cafe who didn't have dogs.
I'm glad you mentioned that because right before we started recording, I thought that in my head that as long as
Hmm.
your dog's not up on the table or trying to get other
Right,
people's food, you're
right,
probably going to not be asked for that licensing proof.
right, right. I mean, we have very few rules at our house, but not on the table is one of them. And we always tell Salty, we don't walk on the table, so you don't get to either. I don't care
My
if you're.
cat does not listen to my rules. My cat, as soon as I'm not looking, she's back on the table.
Rules are meant to be broken,
I have
but
the spray
yeah,
bottle method.
for sure. Yep, we have two different spray bottles. We have one with lemon juice to spray our plants that we don't want her to munch on, and then we just have the water one for discipline. But
The
it's
water
always
one
out of
is
reach. You
it's
know.
all purpose. The water one is for the plants, it's for the bearded dragon, and it's for aversion therapy.
There you go. There you go. Just gotta have you just gotta have a humidifier in the house going at all times.
A mister, like at the grocery store.